I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I think pirating has become the go-to method if you want to enjoy gaming these days. This isn't about being a scummy pirate looking to exploit intellectual properties or the hard work of developers. It's about preserving self-respect and dignity by refusing to support the predatory and anti-consumer practices that some big corporations are pushing. I'm all for capitalism. I would go and support companies' products. But it has to make sense. If we're paying especially large sums, we need to feel respected. So while I don't recommend piracy, it might be the best way to counter these practices. Let's talk about it. In recent years, the gaming industry has seen a surge in practices that many deem anti-consumer. From aggressive monetization strategies such as microtransactions in a fucking paid game, overly expensive game titles, to intrusive practices like DRM systems and the right to brick your console, like in Nintendo's case. Players often find themselves at the mercy of corporate decisions that prioritize profits over player experience. For instance, the implementation of DRM software like Denuvo, whatever, has been criticized for negatively impacting game performance. Ironically though, pirated versions of these games, stripped of such protections, often run more smoothly, offering a better experience to players who didn't pay for the game. Imagine how ironic that is. And now games are being digitalized, meaning you don't really own most of the games today. You buy into these Game Pass, key cards, code, or whatever, and these things are just technically digital rights, meaning if for some reason they lose the game data or their server shuts down, the game you paid for is gone forever. As someone who paid for a product, I expect that product to be mine forever, unless I accidentally break it or something. But with digital games, that will not be possible. You are at the mercy of these game companies, these corpos. What's more funny about this is you will probably have better ownership of any pirated game than the legal version, because if you pirate it, you literally have the game files sitting on your device, waiting to be accessed anywhere, anytime. It's just crazy if you think about it, you know? And these are just some of the reasons why more and more gamers view piracy not as theft, but as a form of protest against these anti-consumer practices. They argue that by refusing to purchase games laden with exploitative features, they're sending a message to developers and publishers. This perspective is rooted in the belief that certain corporate behaviors like exploitative labor practices, aggressive targeting of fan-made projects, and prioritizing monetization over game quality overshadow the creative aspects of game development, which is totally understandable, especially if you're a consumer yourself. However, I'm not gonna deny that this raises an ethical dilemma. The question is it justifiable to pirate a game as a form of protest? While some argue that piracy deprives developers of revenue, others argue that if they were never going to purchase the game due to its predatory features, no actual loss occurs. In layman's terms, it's basically like canceling negative stuff with another negative stuff to make it balance. One primary example of these predatory or anti-consumer features is how blatantly Ubisoft just admitted that we'll never own the games we buy from them in court. Because of that, a lot of people are spamming, if buying isn't owning, then pirating isn't stealing. It's being spammed everywhere that it has become a meme at this point, and it makes total sense. And I used to defend these companies against pirating, especially Nintendo. I remember back then I supported their campaign to shut down emulators and sue their asses if needed. Because that's the so-called right thing, correct? Protect the works of the rightful owner and never tolerate stealing from them. That's the noble reason, basically. And also, I love Nintendo back then. Of course, I was called out by some people, and their literal counter-argument to me goes along the line like, bro, it's Nintendo we're talking about here. I get what you're saying, but this is Nintendo. Those simple short arguments that made no sense back then, I now fully understand. Just by them reminding me that it's Nintendo is already enough to send the full message. Now I'm embarrassed at myself thinking about the days I used to defend their asses. But again, I don't encourage anyone to pirate at all. That's far from the case. I'm just saying that I totally get why people are pirating nowadays. And this topic on itself is very debatable because it touches on broader questions about the morality of digital piracy and whether it's a legitimate form of resistance against corporate practices perceived as unjust. The core issue isn't piracy itself, but the practices that drive consumers to consider it. If game developers and publishers focused more on delivering value and respecting their player base, the incentive to pirate would diminish significantly. As Gabe Newell, the CEO of Valve, once suggested, offering better services and understanding consumer behavior is more effective in combating piracy than implementing restrictive measures. Means Gabe himself doesn't see piracy as a problem on its own, but a result of something deep within, which in this case, again, is the anti-consumer practices we are experiencing from these giant corpus today. Even this indie developer named Hakita low-key allowed his game to be pirated. Again, the first time I saw this, I was so against it. As a freelancer, I was like, how are you even gonna earn your money back if people pirate your game? Also, it low-key allows people to pirate other games other than his, which may also lead to same result. I was so baffled by this tweet of his because back then I just couldn't comprehend the logic. Now, after my last straw with Nintendo, I fully understand. He can still earn stuff because if pirates like the game, they can still support him by buying it later. Also, they can promote it to their friends or families or whoever. That may also add up to the potential sales. And more importantly, people will love him more because he made them feel respected. He risks some of his potential earnings to earn the trust and respect of the whole gaming community. Chances are, if he makes another game, people will at least be curious to check it out. I swear to God, this world is becoming more of a One Piece world right now. The point being made here is the product or the ecosystem that we're trying to get into should not be exclusive towards the rich alone, who can afford to get caught up into these predatory schemes. Heck, even some of the rich are probably questioning such predatory practices that these giant gaming corporations are implementing. While piracy somehow makes sense in gaming nowadays, I'm still not encouraging it, I don't want to be quoted promoting illegal stuff, and it still remains a contentious topic. It's essential to understand the reasons behind its prevalence. What I think is more important is to address the root causes, such as anti-consumer practices which can lead to a healthier relationship between gamers and the industry. Man, I keep saying anti-consumer practice, but that's literally the point of this video. By prioritizing player experience and ethical practices, the gaming industry can foster loyalty and reduce the appeal of piracy. And all of these said responsibilities are on these game companies' hands. And as Hakita said, culture shouldn't exist only for those who can afford it.